Welcome to Comment with me, George Galloway, here on Press TV, still the voice of the voiceless. Comment is the big conversation. It can even be the great debate, but it can be neither without you. That's why, above all, I need your telephone calls. Here's the number to ring: 44208-601-4555. You call us, we'll call you back, establish a clear line, and remember, if you get on the TV with me, the volume on your TV has to be down at 0. Or you can SMS me at 447800008066, or you can email me at comment@presstv.co.uk. You can even send me a tweet at comment_presstv. There is only one subject that we could possibly discuss this evening, and it's the question of whether anyone can make Israel stop killing. Can anyone, and if they can, will they make Israel stop killing? I'm not going to talk for long, not least because I said most of what I had to say last week. But I just recall a prediction that I made last week, which was that we had reached a turning point. And clearly we have. I told you last week that nobody loves Israel anymore. Some still move for Israel, but not out of love, but out of interests. And I said to you that interests can and do change. And that has been vividly demonstrated by the events of the last 7 days. Even Ban Ki-moon, a man apparently struck dumb, a man apparently oblivious to most of that which is going on in the world, said this of the attack on the Jabalia girls' school, a school I know, a camp I know very well indeed. Once upon a time, I had a house that I called Jabalia. To call it a camp is an understatement. There's 110,000 people live in the Jabalia refugee camp, and in the heart of it is the girls' school. And in it were hundreds, many hundreds, of refugees, almost all of them women and children, asleep in the school. A school which the United Nations had 17 times warned Israel was chock full of civilian refugees, and for them to be very careful firing ordnance around it. 17 times. But they destroyed it nonetheless, and they have killed scores of little children and maimed hundreds more by a devastating attack on the school, which was the 6th UN school which Israel has attacked in the course of the last 3 weeks or so. Through all of it, Ban Ki-moon was struck dumb, but here's what he said on this recent attack on the Jabalia girls' school. He said, and I quote, "Nothing is more shameful than attacking sleeping children." Well, nothing indeed. The question is, what is the United Nations going to do about it? The President of the United States, who pays for it all, who provides the weaponry and the ammunition for it all, he was quite incensed also. He said that the attack on the school was completely unacceptable, but not so unacceptable that 3 hours later he did not sign a gigantic $350 million order for more ammunition, more shells, more of the very ordnance which destroyed the school which he had just 3 hours before said was completely unacceptable. Nor is anyone in any doubt as to whether it is deliberate. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Navi Pillay, said Israel's war is, and I quote, deliberate defiance of international law. So the UN's in no doubt. Deliberate defiance, more shameful than anything could be. The US President says it's completely unacceptable. David Cameron demands a ceasefire. All sorts of people make all sorts of sounds. Their lips move, but none of them do anything to stop it, at least not yet. We'll come later in the show to my answer to that question. Can anyone make Israel stop killing? But first I want to draw your attention to some important videos that emerged in the week. And just before we go to them, if you see videos like this on the internet, share them. It's good that you watch them. It's far more good if you share them. Social media has played a phenomenal role in this conflict, in bringing about this sea change that's going on in the world, where Israel has established itself, even in the United States, amongst a majority of the people, as the most hated country on earth. A fanatic, extremist, savage, lawless, rogue, terrorist state that has to be brought under control before they drag the whole world into destruction. First of all, let's watch Chris Gunness. He's the head of UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, who was in charge of the school in Gaza. Then we'll watch what happened to an American Jew in Israel when he tried to raise his voice against the crimes being committed using his government's money, his government's weapons, and by the state that calls itself, though we do not accept the nomenclature, the Jewish state. And then let's hear what passes for impartial TV. It's so impartial you can watch it on the Sky platform. It lives up to the standards of impartiality that Ofcom considers suitable for the British public. It's an idiot called Sean Hannity, who just happens to be one of the most watched broadcasters in America. God save us. Let's watch the three of these in a one-hour.
The rights of Palestinians, even their children, are wholesale denied, and it's appalling. My pleasure. It's okay.
Israel is occupying the Palestinian people in my name, in the name of world Jewry, and I myself, an American Jew, am here to say that that is completely unjustified and ethically reprehensible. And we will, world Jewry and all people of the world will not stop until this occupation ends and until the Palestinian people have their right of return, their right to live without occupation, and equal rights within Israel. That is why we are here.
This is my passport. I will not give you my passport. I'm not giving you my passport. I have a right to be here. I have a right to be here. Don't push me. Do I need to call my... I'm going to call my consulate right now. Get off me. Do I need to call my consulate right now?
Here to debate this from the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, Dr. Zuhdi Jasser is with us. And also joining us, the Executive Director of the Jerusalem Fund and Palestinian Center in Washington, Youssef, Munayyer is with us. Welcome all of you. Thanks for being here. Youssef, let me ask you this. If I fire 1,600, 2,000 rockets into your neighborhood, I kidnap 3 children in your neighborhood, students, and I kill them. What do you think the proper proportionate response is?
Well, maybe you should stop the ongoing, for decades-long military occupation of Palestinian territory.
Okay. Listen,
before you question.
We can take it back to the 1948 partition plan, and we can look at the 67 war, the 73 war, and the hostilities abroad to Israel. They did give land for peace 9 years ago. Now I'm asking you a question. If thousands of rockets are fired in your neighborhood, and kids in your neighborhood are kidnapped, what are you going to do?
Sean, if
what
the United States...
do?
Sir, I'm going to try to answer your question if you stop badgering me. Thank you. If the United States was invaded by a foreign military and besieged and surrounded, and the food that was coming into the United States was counted by the calories so that people would be put on a diet, as the Israelis claim. Bombs were being dropped. Sir, let me finish. Let me finish.
You're justifying...
Let me finish, and then
you are making a rationalization for rockets and kidnapping and murder, and you expect you want to blame the victims in this case. I want to ask Youssef a question. Is Hamas a terrorist organization?
Do I get to actually speak now?
You get to answer the question. It's a simple yes or no question. Is Hamas...
You invited me on here. You invited me on here as a guest.
I'm asking you a question. Is Hamas, whose charter calls for the destruction of Israel, is that a terrorist organization? That's a yes or no question.
Thank you for your question. And now I will provide an answer.
Finally.
It's very telling to me that, and it should be telling to your viewers as well, by the way, that the moment you have a Palestinian voice on your program who begins to explain the legitimate grievances of Palestinians on the ground,
not just organization.
Hamas. Answer the
question.
Am I a guest on your program, or am I on a witness stand here?
Is Hamas a terrorist organization?
The United States certainly considers Hamas a terrorist organization.
Do you consider? I didn't ask what the United States think. I asked what you think. Okay. Can you hear?
Look, if you think that we are going to have any progress in this situation by simply yelling at me, that's not really going to be helpful.
Let me ask you nicely. Is Hamas
let me
a terrorist
ask you,
organization?
Sir, a question at this point.
Is Hamas a terrorist organization? Yes or no?
Let me ask you a question, sir, at
No, you
this
don't
point.
answer a question with a question. Is Hamas... What part of this can't you get through your thick head? Is Hamas a terrorist organization?
Excuse me?
Yes or no?
Well, that took my breath away. I don't know about you. That's what passes for freedom of speech in America and in Israel. And if that's what the Israeli security forces do to an American Jew holding up his American passport, what do you think they do to Palestinian Muslims? And Hannity thought that he was a tough guy, badgering the Palestinian voice that he had on there. And I thought that the Palestinian representative did very well indeed. But let me challenge you, Hannity. Why don't you have me on your television program? Are you big enough for that? Are you man enough for that? I'm waiting to hear from you. The last time I challenged you on the radio, you ran away. You hung up the phone. You're a big coward, Hannity. A big, bullying, ignoramus coward. Let's talk to Franklin in Paris. Can anyone make Israel stop killing? Franklin?
It's unfortunate, George.
Franklin, you're on the air, so turn your TV down.
It's unfortunate, George. There is nobody in the world now that can talk to Israel besides Obama. Because I see Obama now is the head of the world. Because Obama now is
disobeyed the golden rule.
England, Germany, and the rest of the world. Because what Obama says is that what goes on. Now Obama is trying to support Israel by murdering the Palestinians. So there was a man in Liberia called Chastain that was jailed for aiding and abetting the rebel in Sierra Leone for killing the Sierra Leoneans. So if Obama is supporting and arming Israel to kill and murder the Palestinians, Obama is also a murderer. So it's very unfortunate that nobody in the world can look into Obama's face and tell him the truth. It's very unfortunate Obama is saying he's going to arm the Israelis to continue killing the Palestinians. This is the kind of world we're living in.
Franklin, there is no doubt that someone who pays and arms a mass murderer is culpable in the crime. He is an accessory, in this case, before and after the fact. And his eyes are wide open. He knows the truth. He hates Netanyahu. He supports the Palestinian people in his heart. But he's such a coward. He's such a self-serving, grasping coward that even though he has no more elections to fight, he still cannot summon the courage to say in public what he says in private, or to refuse to sign the check, to refuse to send the guns. I'm going from Paris to Nova Scotia, to Gary in Halifax. Gary, can anyone make Israel stop killing?
Well, I don't know, George. How do I get this through your thick head?
You've got to laugh.
I mean, really?
You've really got to laugh. And Ofcom thinks they are the impartial model that we must follow. Press TV didn't live up to Hannity's standards. That's why people in Britain are watching us on computer screens right now. Go on, Gary.
Well, George, just to give you a sample of the way public opinion is moving in this corner of the world, we've had a few demonstrations here that are led by Palestinian students from the main university. And we've had we've had at least three. The interesting thing was the first two were held as pickets downtown on a busy street corner. But by the time the third picket came up on Tuesday, it was a march to the U.S. consulate. And that's the way things are going. There are certain things that can no longer be hidden.
Well, that's true, but you have a government that is more Netanyahu than Netanyahu.
Indeed.
Is anybody in the political class standing up against this, Gary?
No, they're terrified, and they're terrified for the one and the same reason. They're terrified of the connections with the United States, as well as the benefits that certain parts of the Canadian economy hope to get from the arms deals with Israel.
Wow. What is the reason for the United States president knowing the truth but living the lie, in your view, Gary?
Well, some people would put a lot down on this notion of the Israeli lobby, and indeed there is a lobby, and like any lobby, it seeks power for itself by financing political careers.
Sure, but what does he have to worry about, Gary? He's got no more elections.
Yes, I know. Even though there are members of his party who do face the electorate, but the issue is that the U.S. has stood for the kind of state that the Zionist entity became from the get-go. At no time did the U.S. ever bring pressure on this state to do justice to the Palestinians, to do reparations to the refugees that they had uprooted. At no time did they do that. And today we see the situation. It's just carried on. Israel is the U.S. instrument in that part of the world to implement and protect U.S. interests, U.S. policies.
Although I would argue it's doing the opposite. I mean, the end result of all of this has to be more radicalization, more fanaticization, greater levels of hatred for the United States, and one day it's all going to come to a sticky end.
Well, like I said at the start of this conversation, George, how do I get this through your thick head?
Gary, you're a star. Great call. Let's go to England. Talk to Nelson in Manchester. Go ahead, Nelson.
Good evening, George.
Good evening, sir. Go on.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for being who you are, a freedom fighter, and for inspiring us to continue to believe in a free Palestine.
Thank you, brother.
Secondly, I want to congratulate you on your observation on the power of social media.
Yeah.
I agreed 100%. George, to the question whether we can defeat Israel, we can and we will. But we have to adopt a new strategy that is suitable for the times in which we live in. I believe that we must continue with the street protests and to pile pressure and to boycott the products of Israel. But I also believe, George, correct me if I'm wrong, that we should invest more on a global digital strategy to reach the young people in the countries in which the governments oppose Palestine. Because we can't reach Saudi Arabia, we can't reach the guys in Dubai, but we can reach the people of Dubai using Twitter and social media. So, George, I believe that you can lead us to a more 21st century orientated intellectual war that emphasizes the need of social media. And we can and we will win Israel by engaging on an intellectual war that inspires this generation and the next generation to continue and defend these ideas. Because television is no longer reliable, the BBC is no longer reliable. I'm not paying my license fee, and then I'm using Twitter to collect information. So if we can use Twitter, George, I believe we can win.
Wonderful call, Nelson in Manchester. I would suggest that we set up a war chest to fight against the mainstream media's stranglehold on this whole area of conflict. Except, as soon as we opened a bank account, the power in the United States and in London, for that matter, would close the bank account down and freeze the money. And that's what happened this very week to reputable, highly respectable Muslim organizations banking with HSBC. They turned up at the bank and were told, your account is closed because it's beyond our risk appetite. A bank which has been convicted and fined hundreds of millions of dollars for laundering drug money won't allow a Muslim charity in England to keep its bank account open. So we have to find a way around that. But I'm working on it, Nelson. Let's try and squeeze in Annie in London's call before the break. Annie, welcome to the show.
Hi, hello, sir. First of all, I would really like to thank you for your voice and your support.
Thank you.
If the more powerful Muslim countries like Turkey, Saudi Arabia or Pakistan had just one such leader as you, we would see a very different world today, for sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
The second thing is that I think it's very important for everybody to educate themselves on what is happening. I have been to protests, I have been busy with petitions, BDS, and now I want to ask you, sir, it looks like as if nothing is getting in the way of Israel. I have encountered Hezbollah propaganda, and I have seen the kind of lies they come up with, and how much research you need to do, and how you need to have everything fact-based so that you can respond. And
well, look, Annie, let me interrupt you. I want you to stay on the line, and we'll continue this after a 3-minute break, because you raise vital questions to which I happen to have answers. I have to take a very short break for a news bulletin. Just 3 minutes. God willing, I'll be here when you get back. Welcome back to Comment with me, George Galloway, here on Press TV, which is still the voice of the voiceless. If you're enjoying this show, if you're finding it useful, you need to bring someone else along with you to watch it next week. Everybody watching here, try and get one more person to watch this program. And many are calling in now. More than 75% of callers in the last few weeks have been entirely new callers, and that's a really big breakthrough. We are global, and we're breaking out. And one of the means by which we are breaking out is by our direct contact with each other on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, through the videos on YouTube, through Press TV, and the other very small but increasingly influential alternative television channels. Very few people are watching the so-called mainstream any longer. And even when they do, they believe less and less of what they see and hear. We are living in revolutionary times. Everything is turning upside down. The first one now will later be last, and the slow one now will later be fast. Of that, I am absolutely certain. Now, Annie is on the line. She's in London. She was making a series of very important points when I had to break. And unusually, I've asked her to stay on the line, for which I'm grateful. Annie, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Just recap for the viewers on the points you were making, and continue.
Yes. What I was saying is that I believe that everybody should take out the time and educate themselves on what is happening. There's a lot of lies, a lot of hoax videos, false reports, false witnesses online, and you need to do detailed research online to be able to counter all kinds of Hasbara propaganda. Apart from that, I have participated in BTS, in petitions, in boycotts, in protests. I have written to my MP, for which I have received a rather pointless response. I just want to know, sir, that with reading about the Goldstone report and seeing that nothing has happened in the past, and UN has behaved like, an exclusive specimen of buffoonery, if there's anything we can really do to finally stop Israel from this genocide.
Well, look, it's a wonderful call, and you sound like exactly the kind of young and active and very clever, well-read, well-educated person that we need in this struggle. And people like you are arriving on the streets in profusion. I see them on every protest, at every public meeting. Let me deal, if I can, with some of the important points that you have made. First of all, because something hasn't worked up to now, doesn't mean that it isn't going to work eventually. Because this is a quantitative build-up of force, which is changing the balance of force. And to mix my metaphor to a nuclear one, we are assembling a critical mass. And you don't know when that critical mass is going to arrive. until it arrives. When it arrives, it produces in nuclear physics a chain reaction, and that chain reaction leads to a very profound change indeed. And that's exactly what's underway now. Imagine it this way. You're watching a kettle boiling. You can't actually tell how close the kettle is to boiling until you begin to hear the noise just in advance of the qualitative change from water to steam. Now, that's the period that we're in now. When I started this struggle in 1975, the water was stone cold, and it didn't look as if the water was ever going to boil. But now we can hear it roaring in the kettle, and even the first wisps of steam coming out of the spout of the kettle. Look on it that way. Just because it didn't work yet doesn't mean it's not going to work. The second point you make is an absolutely vital one. I'm glad you made it. When I had a radio show for 7 or 8 years every Friday and Saturday night, which was a mass cult following show called the mother of all talk shows, and whenever a Zionist used to come on the line to argue with me, I always made this point to them, and they knew I wasn't bluffing. I used to say, before you go any further, there is nothing that you know about this subject that I don't know. There is nothing that you can say that's wrong that I won't be able to point out it's wrong. There is no fact, no date, no event, no argument that I have not schooled myself so thoroughly in that there is no one in the world able to argue facts with me on Palestine. And that's the goal everyone should follow. And it's easy now. You don't have to do it in books alone. You can do it by searching videos, speeches, internet, everywhere. You can find facts and details. So school yourselves, train yourselves, so that you can never be beaten in an argument on fact. There is never a lie that you cannot contradict. Thirdly, what you're doing, petitions, demonstrations, boycotts, is absolutely the correct thing. And it's working. Believe me, it's working. Israel and the companies that support it are beginning to hurt. I add just one tactic to the tactics you mentioned. At the same time as boycotting Israel, we have to reach out to Palestinian towns and cities and communities and organizations, civil society, and link up with them and help them. I announced last Saturday that I'm calling for the twinning of my own city of Bradford with Gaza. And I've posed that now to the councillors. They have a choice to make. I believe they should make a choice to twin with Palestine. And I've done it before. In 1980, so nearly 35 years ago, I successfully twinned my home city of Dundee with the Palestinian city of Nablus. And the Palestinian flag has been flying in the Dundee town hall for 34 years, and it's flying still. I was then an MP in Glasgow, and I helped my then colleague, Alex Mawson, the Lord Mayor, Lord Provost of Glasgow, in his successful campaign to twin Glasgow with Bethlehem. Ditto, the Palestinian flag is still flying in the town hall in Glasgow. So it's possible to do it. Everyone should try. If you can't get your town, your city, your borough to twin, then go lower down. Churches with churches, mosques with mosques, trade unions with trade unions, and so on. Because every little helps. I'll come back later, Annie, to the one thing that could solve this right now without waiting any further for the kettle to boil. But I want first to hear from Sharif in Scotland. Sharif, go ahead. Oh, Shamil. I beg your pardon, Shamil. Go ahead, brother.
Yes, Shamil, sir. Thank you, sir. Before I go on, I wish to give you blessings for Gayatri and your newborn son.
Yes, what did you say about Gayatri?
I wish blessings upon Gayatri and your newborn son.
I don't really know what you're saying, but anyway, leave my wife out of it. Go on.
Okay, sir. I have great respect for the efforts you make in this field.
Thank you, sir.
I feel very much similar to yourself on this thing. I wonder if I could take a moment to give context. My father took me to a place called Bergen-Belsen as a child.
Oh, yes.
And that has given me a reading of how much the Jewish people have suffered.
Yes.
And I find it very painful to acknowledge the fact that people with such a rich culture have, in half a century, turned from the victims into the victimizers.
Yes.
This is a great sadness.
Indeed. It's a very powerful point, Shamil, and it's one that for many, many years, including on this show, I've been reluctant to go down this path, because what's happening in Palestine is not the Holocaust. The Holocaust was millions of people, was systemized, industrialized, they built factories to massacre people. But Israel are behaving like Nazis. This collective punishment of a captive population is precisely, in every respect, a replica of the rising in Warsaw, in the Warsaw Ghetto. Shamil, they've just told me what you said about my new boy, Toran Mustaqim George Galloway, and I thank you for it. He was a big boy, and he's now 2 weeks old and getting bigger. Thanks, Shamil, for your very kind words. Saifuddin is in Minnesota, which is a very important place for me, as many of you know. Saifuddin, welcome.
Salam alaikum, George.
Walaikum salam, welcome.
First, of course, I want to thank you for everything you did for Palestinian people.
Wajib, Habibi, wajib.
The next is I want to say about one thing, that is about Saudi Arabian government.
Yes.
Saudi Arabian government, the first Saudi Arabian king is Abdul Aziz. He was put in there by American and by United Kingdom.
Yes.
So we don't. I want to say this for all Muslims around the world. We don't have to wait. We don't have to look Saudi Arabian president or Saudi Arabian king, because they was put in by American and England. So there is no way they can help us too, or there is no way they can help Palestinians to stop or to die or to genociding. So the only thing I want to remind the Muslim around the world, we don't have to look Saudi Arabia. So the only thing we can do is we have to share and we have to look what is going on in this world by Israeli people. That's the only thing I want to say.
Saifuddin, I want to, if you'll forgive me, to disagree with that. First of all, King Abdulaziz was not put in power by the United States or Britain. The United States and Britain climbed on his back because they could see that he was coming to power, that he was a powerful man associated with a powerful movement, and that he was strong. So Britain and America parasited on his back and on the back of his people. He went along with it, of course. I'm not whitewashing him, but it's not true to say that he was put in by them. Secondly, he had a son called King Faisal, who in 1973, when Jerusalem was being occupied and being destroyed and the Palestinian people were under massacre and the Arab armies were being pummeled by American-backed and armed and financed Israeli forces. King Faisal, the son of Abdulaziz, said in a very famous broadcast that I would rather go back and live in the desert eating dates than to live on the proceeds of oil being sold to powers that are bringing this disaster upon Holy Jerusalem. He was the custodian of the 2 mosques, but he was concerned about the 3rd mosque also. So what I'm asking from the rulers of Saudi Arabia is, why can't you be like King Faisal, who was of course assassinated very soon after he declared that he would not produce any more oil would not sell any more oil as long as Palestine was being destroyed and occupied by the Zionist settler state. Very soon afterwards he was killed, but his name lives evermore. His example is written in the stars, and surely on the judgment day he'll have a better chance of passing muster than some others who have followed him. So I appeal now to Malik Abdullah, the custodian of the two mosques. You, King Abdullah, are the only person in the world who could stop this right now, this minute, by merely stating that as long as this massacre is continuing, as long as the siege of the Palestinians is choking them to death, you will not sell oil to any country that's involved in this crime. And do you know what, Your Majesty? You wouldn't even have to do it. Just by saying it, just by threatening it, you would bring this massacre to a halt this evening. Because of the Western countries. You see, people ask me, why do the Western countries do it? I answer, because they can. They can take everything that they want from the Arabs without paying a penny in price politically. They do it because they can. The moment they think they might not be able is the moment that they will change course. If the United States thought for 1 second that its support for Israel was going to cost it everything in the Arab and Muslim world, the American policy would change overnight. Scott is in Cologne, in Germany. We better hear from him. Scott, welcome.
George, can you hear me okay?
Very clearly, sir. Go ahead.
Very good. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you and your wife on the birth of your son. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Fantastic news. I want to put something forward to you, George. I respect you very, very much, and I really do agree with most of what you say. And I want to know your opinion. What do we do now? We have to move forward. We can talk about history for the next 100 years, but the truth is now there is a country there called Israel. Now, what do we do to go forward? The truth is they're both bombing each other, and it will turn to nothing. Nothing will come out of this. People will die ad infinitum. So what do we do?
Well, you're factually wrong, first of all, Scott. They're not both bombing each other. There have been 2 civilian deaths in Israel in the last 4 weeks. 2. But there have been 1,400 Palestinian civilian deaths. So it's entirely misleading to say they're both bombing each other. They're not. But Israel is annihilating hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of Palestinians. So,
I get that, George.
Secondly,
I really do.
But Scott, what you're implying has already been tried. The Oslo Agreement accepted the existence of a state called Israel. It promised Israel that it could keep 79% of what had been Palestine, and that a Palestinian state would be constructed on the other 21%, which was minus the best land, the coastal land, and so on. That was nearly 20 years ago, Scott, and not a centimetre of a Palestinian state has been produced.
So what do we do? What do we do? What do we do?
We have to fight. We have to fight to delegitimize the apartheid state. You see, your argument could have been 20 years ago when Mandela was still in the dungeon. Well, what can we do? The Boers are strong. The apartheid system has all the guns, has all the Air Force, the Navy, the Army. It has all this money and gold and diamonds. We'll have to accept apartheid. No, said Mandela and the African National Congress. And we were triumphant. Apartheid in South Africa was smashed between the hammer of resistance and the anvil of international solidarity.
But George,
that's what we're going to do again. Here, Scott, I need to press on, but come back next week. I'd like to talk to you again. Fosana is in Heringhouse in Belgium, and I don't think I've heard from her before.
Hello, George. Salaam alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Fosaria, I beg your pardon. Go ahead.
Yeah, God bless you, George. It's been very long time I'm trying to reach you, but today, inshallah...
No, it's good luck. It's our good luck. Welcome.
Yes. I have one question for Mr. Obama. Does he have a conscience?
Well, he's always crying when there's a school shooting. And innocent children are killed in schools in the United States. He goes along to the community meetings and he cries. And he finds such poetic words of empathy with the parents of those children. What does he have to say to the parents of the children massacred in the United Nations schools? That's my question. I'm going to try and get one more in. Thanks for the call from Belgium. I'm going to the aforementioned South Africa to talk to Misr. Misr in South Africa. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I want to know why is it that we Muslims we just need to cooperate together and then ask Hamas to just try to stop for not respond again so that Israel people can stop what they are doing.
Well, this is my constant theme, that the Muslims alone could solve this problem. You don't need the British or the Americans or the French. The Muslims themselves, if they came together and used their power, they could solve this question themselves and could have done decades ago. Last calls from Dubai. Muhammad, who knows, maybe it's the ruler. Muhammad, I'm assuming you're not Prince Muhammad or Sheikh Muhammad. Go ahead.
Salam alaikum, Mr.
Walaikum salam. Go ahead.
How are you?
By the grace of God, I'm good.
I'm so surprised that all leaders of the world, they could not stop this genocide. But I've got a very simple solution to solve the complete genocide, what is going on not only in Gaza, but all over the world.
Go ahead.
And that is, if United Nations is taken to International Criminal Court, the problem of genocide all over the world will be solved.
No, well, this is a common misperception, Mohammed, and I really need to deal with it. First of all, you can only be taken to the International Criminal Court if your country is a signatory to the International Criminal Court. The United Nations is not a country and is not a signatory to the ICC. The United States is not a signatory to the ICC, and therefore the United States could never be taken to the ICC. Israel is not a signatory to the ICC, and so Israel cannot be taken to the ICC. We should stop having illusions in courts and international organizations that somehow they're going to solve the problem of these murdered boys that were playing football on the beach. Mohammed, it's not going to be solved in The Hague, brother. It's going to be solved in Dubai, and in Abu Dhabi, and in Riyadh, and in Amman, and in Damascus, and in Baghdad, and in Kuwait. That's where it has to be solved, and it could be solved. So please stop dreaming of non-existent courts. Apart from anything else, Mohammed, only black people get taken to the ICC.
Hello, if you just comment your name and the place, please, that number. And just make sure that your television volume is set to 0. So maybe 00. Can you spell your name for me? Yeah, I know. You redirect me to put through your phone number and then we'll call you back.